Hey, welcome back. It's Consider the Possibilities, a little short snippet of something from me to you without a guest today. And today I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome. I think it's important that we unpack that a little bit, and probably a good time of the year to do it as people get ready to do all sorts of New Year's resolutions and think about how they're going to do things either better or differently, or kind of up level their game. This is a topic that's a considerable concern to many of the women that I know and to women that you know, because we're up to something, as I like to call it. And when you're up to something, you're going to face some barriers. So, first, let me start with the definition of what imposter syndrome is. It refers to a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of their competence. This term isn't typically found in official diagnostic manuals, but it's widely recognized in psychological and academic literature. So let's think about this for a second and talk about it. Why do we think we suffer from imposter syndrome? Well, I'm going to give you some thoughts of my own, and then hopefully you guys can, write in or chat or reach out to me and give me your feedback. I think it's easier for women to have imposter syndrome than men because of where we are in our professional and life journeys. There's gender stereotypes to begin with. So when you're in a situation at work where you're one of the few women in an organization or on a team or in a department or in the leadership, you're automatically going to be put in a position of having high visibility. And sometimes you're on the defensive. Sometimes you have to play offense. Sometimes these gender stereotypes about, being a certain way because you're a woman or you identify as a woman has you in a box, and maybe you're not comfortable with that box. So there's a sense of conflict, an internal conflict that causes this feeling of inadequacy or imposter. Think about it. I mean, there's not a lot of women in certain fields. There's an underrepresentation in leadership, specifically in STEM or in academia. Now that's changing. Think about the women that are becoming college and university presidents. I will tell you right now, I'm just shocked and awed and thrilled. We have Fordham University, woman president; Columbia, woman president; Cornell, NYU, Dartmouth. These are all recent appointments that change the narrative in academia. But certainly until this point, I can share my own experiences being underrepresented in leadership. When I was in corporate, my last job before I started this company, On Demand CMO, I was the publisher of a magazine called Brand Week, which was owned by Adweek magazines. I was the only female on the leadership team. And I had things like, discrimination and bias. When the boys went out to play golf on Fridays, whenever it was warm, I got to stay in the office and man the fort, pardon the pun. And I was running the manager on duty duties for all the other branch offices around the country while they were having fun playing golf. There was no such thing as let's get somebody on a Zoom from a distance, or, it was barely cell phone accessibility. So if there was a problem, I was it. And then you wonder why I was told I couldn't work from home. Well, I couldn't work from home because it was too convenient to have me in the office doing the shit that you didn't want to do while you were going out having fun with your friends. Your male friends, I might add. There was not a single woman invited to any of those golf outings until I decided to start a golf outing for our clients and our teams for women only. And that was a game changer. It was also a game changer in that my boss had begun to hate me even more because now I was firmly in his territory. So workplace bias and discrimination, you're underestimated sometimes, you get less credit for your work, or you're sometimes taken for granted. That in and of itself creates that feeling of angst, that feeling of, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I in the right place? Am I, capable of doing all of these things that are now in my purview? What about the fact that we just might have higher personal standards and are more perfectionistic, is that a word? We are more perfectionists than many of our peers. Women who are high achieving are in and of themselves. We're called bitchy. We're called type A. We're called perfectionists. We're called a lot of things, and can be judged harshly. So this perfectionism can feel like, you know, a little difficult, and it can really impact our sense of imposter syndrome, right? And I think also we have a lack of role models and mentors. Certainly at my age, I talk about this in my book quite a lot, that I didn't have mentors. I had one mentor briefly when I was started in event marketing, and she passed away tragically from cancer. But beside her, I don't remember having someone to go to, somebody to run things by. We didn't have that same support, women to women. There were no women in my environments. And so the peer to peer and the mentorship and the role model aspect of career building wasn't really present. So I was constantly questioning myself. I historically have been the youngest manager managing people that were older than me. That gave me tremendous sense of insecurity and feeling like I was an imposter. In my last corporate job, I replaced a guy that was 50 plus years old. At that point, I was 29. He smoked a pipe and had gray hair. And in walks this petite brunette who looks like she's probably could be who knows what age, depending on who you were. And this is why I wore a bun all the time and tried to make myself look older and wore frumpy clothes just to make myself look older so I looked like I was in the right place. So I think all of these things have us question, am I really capable? And the answer is yes. It is absolutely yes. I'm going to get into some solution modes in a little bit. But, we have to also look and unpack the cultural and societal expectations of how women should behave and what we should be doing. And the fact of the matter is, we also have work life pressures that men don't have or didn't have until, recently. What I have noticed in today's environment, though, is that couples of today's generation versus the couples of my generation are a little bit more equal in their division of labor, of raising the children, of household responsibilities and things like that, because I was always the one that took lead on that. Whereas I see today there's some more equity in that context than there used to be. But the point is, you have to just acknowledge it without judgment, because it's not your fault. It is what it is because you're stretching your comfort zone. Think about being comfortable all the time doesn't serve you, right? So I was at a Fordham Women's Summit a couple of weeks ago, and there was a young lady in the room at my table who happened to be Megan Crocus's daughter, actually. So Megan is going to be on the podcast soon. And she went to school with my son at Fordham. And here she was, this young woman, and she asked the keynote speaker during the Q&A, so did you ever have imposter syndrome? Well, the look on the keynote speaker's face was priceless. Then she kind of gathered herself and said, absolutely. There's not a question in my mind that I did and still do to this day sometimes. And I thought it was interesting because you could have heard a pin drop in the room. And it was a valid question. It was a brilliant question. It was a brave question, but she wanted to know. She really wanted that successful, kick-ass woman to unpack her sentiments about being an imposter. And so I think that in and of itself shows us that, no one is void or can get away with not having it. And I think that's okay. The point is, you want to reframe the idea, as I said, that you're an imposter, but rather someone who's stretching themselves in the process of learning and getting better at what she does and what she delivers and what she can offer to the world. And that's the frame that I want you to have. So, with that, I would say you have a choice and you have agency, and then you should celebrate and acknowledge the achievement under your belt, and like w- you've chosen to do this thing to stretch yourself, or maybe you haven't chosen. You've gotten it by happenstance or by luck of the draw or by circumstance. Well, that's okay too. The point is, not every day is going to be easy. It's not going to be this. Every day is not going to be the same, but walk away with the idea that if you don't have some level of imposter syndrome, you're not being challenged. You're not stretching yourself. You're not getting any better, or you're not being a bigger badass than you already are. So you have to decide whether this slight discomfort is actually imposter syndrome, or is it just you being really, really uncomfortable because there's stuff you don't know. Guess what? That's life. If you knew it all, why would you even be here? Why would you? There's so much I could say about why you don't want to know it all and why you do want to learn as you go and why you do want to be uncomfortable. Get gooey with it. Get okay with the fact that you're learning, and tell yourself that this is the journey. The journey of being uncomfortable will eventually get you to a place where you're mastering something. And then when you've mastered that, you're going to be in a position to master something else, which will probably make you equally uncomfortable, if not more so. But if you're up to something, if you want to bring value to the world, if you want to leave your mark in your life and on the world, you're going to be uncomfortable. You don't think that I'm uncomfortable being here talking to you? Who the hell knows who's listening to this, right? Here I am spewing my guts. I wrote a book. My brother sent me a text like, I can't believe you're sharing stuff that you shared. Well, it made him uncomfortable. Guess what? It wasn't pretty for me either. But unless you're authentic and unless you acknowledge it, there's no room for you to grow. So I'm telling you, it's normal, it's okay, and we're good. And see, this is my reminder that I'm going to leave on this. We're not going to edit it out. This is my reminder on my phone that I get every morning at 10 a.m. that says, be grateful, be intentional, be happy every day. And this is the kind of thing that reminds you, perfect timing, by the way. It's 10 a.m. in the morning, and that's my reminder. And that's the kind of thing you want to remind yourself. Maybe you want to set an alarm and just say, hey, be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's okay. Keep learning. Whatever you want your reminder to be, send yourself an alarm. Set up an alarm and figure out day after day, you're going to be okay. You're going to get more comfortable. And maybe you want to stretch yourself, and maybe you want to learn something different. But in that learning is that notion that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And that's not what I want to leave you with. I don't want you to think that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. I want you to be doing what you're doing. I want you to stretch yourself. I want you to feel the discomfort so that you can ultimately be up to something. Food for thought, my friends. I leave you with that. Consider the possibilities. Thank you for joining. I love you all.